What's up, guys? Brady Figuel here, coming at you with a review of the new Daughtry EP, Shock to the System Part 2, as well as also a review of the previous EP, Shock to the System Part 1, that was put out last year. I'm combining both EPs into one 13-track review. Now, despite Daughtry's discography being, let's just say, somewhat of a bumpy road, see my discography ranking that I just uploaded, where I go pretty in-depth into their catalog for a bit of reference, but they're still, even to this day, a band that I always want to give the benefit of the doubt to. Yes, they're a pretty easy band to make fun of and talk shit about and call butt rock and divorced dad rock, and you wouldn't really be wrong, honestly. But at their best, they're just a genuine hard rock band that puts out catchy songs that get stuck in your head. It's no wonder that their first album was successful as it was, and like I mentioned in my discography ranking, they're a band that even if you don't know them or even know their name, I think everybody that is pretty much, unless you're living under a rock, can recognize and sing along with the chorus of probably a good 5, 6, or 7 of their songs. And that alone says a lot. Chris Daughtry himself has maintained having one of the most recognizable and unique singing voices in rock music for the last 20 years. All that being said, though, I will admit it's been kind of a while since I've had anything positive to say about new Daughtry material. Since 2011's Break the Spell, the band has just spent a little too much time trying to pander to the mainstream pop audience, which is a big turnoff for me personally. Their last album, Dearly Beloved, in 2021, did kind of rejuvenate me a little bit, in a sense that at least they sounded like they were going back to their rock roots, although even that album was a bit overproduced, and it still kind of felt like there was a foot back in that rock sound and still another foot into that pop pandering aspect. So they're a band that I've been kind of close to giving up on these last few albums, quite frankly. But I mean, here they are coming back with a bunch of genuine singles that felt energetic. They felt pretty inspired. They felt pretty dramatic at times. First, there was Artificial that came out about 2 years ago now, and then there was also Pieces that I believe dropped in like the spring of 2024. Both songs that, again, had some genuine energy behind them. They were just a bit less meat and potatoes. They actually incorporated some prominent drama and some decent emotion, which were things that Daughtry either lacked completely or they just sounded like they were trying to do cheap imitations of before. These songs kind of at least got back somewhat of a sense of urgency. Despite maybe some overproduced elements and some unnecessary studio effects, these songs both had absolutely massive choruses. Artificial also has some really catchy yet somewhat synthetic bassy verses that actually pretty much retain and feel like a cohesive unit within the song. And then Pieces has this pretty infectious like 6/8 stomp going with it the whole time, and that send-off in the final chorus itself is just so powerful. And that song also has some pretty cool melodies. Like even in that intro riff, I'll call it, even though it's kind of a non-riff if we're being honest, those kind of distant lead melodies playing in the background, they do kind of remind me of something that would have been maybe on like Leave This Town. And then sticking on part 1, even the track Nervous, which is also a single, that saw the band pretty much go full-on synthetic rock almost. And even though that song didn't do a whole lot for me because I felt that it lacked some dynamics and it was a little bit repetitive overall, that was still a direction that felt natural on the album along with the other singles at that point, and it was a direction that I can at least respect, even though it fell a little bit flat. That song, despite it being very electronic influenced, it didn't make it sound like the band was trying to pander to like Imagine Dragons or 21 Pilots fans. It felt like it actually had a spot on the EP at the time along with those other singles that had been out at that point. And then getting part 1 and seeing the album cuts, like the opener, The Reckoning, which again has this pretty cool build-up type intro before it kicks in really impactfully, despite that initial kick-in being a little bit short. It once again has a really powerful chorus that is pretty catchy also. The drum performance on this song impressed me a lot. There's some prominent double bass use. The drums are very aggressive in this song, I think is the best way of putting it. I will criticize this song for being a little bit generic overall. A lot of the melodies themselves in this track just feel a little bit familiar, like I've kind of heard them before, and as a result, the song might be a little bit predictable, but in context with Daughtry's recent output, this is a great way to start this EP. And then there's the closer, The Dam, which again has a pretty impactful, powerful chorus that really is the centerpiece of the song. The drums in that second verse, I'll compliment again, they just take on more of like a techie feel to them, and then right at the 2:40 mark, you get an actual like pretty good, catchy, groovy riff, which gets even more urgent when that double bass gets thrown under it. There's also the way the song kind of saunters in with that kind of dreamy, spacey intro that I thought was creative. Overall, part one kind of impressed me, not gonna lie. I will single out the title track as being overall decent, but just not having as much dynamics. So that song didn't do a whole lot for me. It felt more like filler than anything. And also the track Nervous, which I already talked about, that just falls a little bit flat, but I still appreciated the direction they went for with it. It isn't until part two here where my true criticisms start to come in for this collection of EPs. And ironically, this EP, part two, is pretty much the band fully embracing a hard rock sound yet again, which they really haven't fully done in 14 years. Getting into things first, I will compliment the main single of this EP, The Day I Die. Again, it's packed with drama and tension overall. At its worst, it's a little overproduced, but that chorus is, again, just so powerful. The lyrics also, too, which I haven't really talked about yet, in this song especially, they do bring in some prominent emotion and energy as far as like existentialism, which I think anybody that's struggled with something mental illness related can relate to something said in this song. So props to the band on that track. I think this song, The Day I Die, is probably my favorite song out of both EPs. Unfortunately, this time around with this EP, it's really the only song that I like on here. Once you get past that pointless ambient intro track, The Seeds, you get into Divided, which is okay, I will admit. It does have a pretty energetic intro that leads into this more like calm verse, but the thing with this song is that the chorus in particular sounds a little weak. And unfortunately, that kind of becomes a theme throughout this part two EP, because the three tracks in a row, The Bottom, Terrified, and Razor, not only have, again, pretty underwhelming choruses, but at times melodies within the songs that kind of make me cringe a little bit, if I'm being honest. Those choruses in particular, like they take on almost like this like sassy, almost southern rock sounding vibe, which it just doesn't work for me. It reminds me a little bit too much of bands like Blackstone Cherry and Royal Bliss that pretty much function as like butt rock, post-grunge stuff with a southern flair. And one of the reasons I've always given Daughtry the benefit of the doubt, especially on their early material, is that to me they never quite fit in with the bands I would call butt rock. Your Buck Cherries, your Saving Abels, your Theory of a Dead Man's, bands like that. Bands that sang about getting drunk and doing blow and going to strip clubs, stuff like that. And I know these songs aren't about those same themes, but again, they just kind of give me those vibes. It's a little bit hard to describe, but if you listen to us, in particular the choruses of these three songs in a row, The Bottom, Terrified, and Razor, I think you'll see what I'm talking about. And it's not just that, but the songs themselves are just kind of boring. Like, The Bottom in particular is just a snooze fest. It's so sluggish. Whereas the songs on part one or The Day I Die on this EP felt really full and dramatic, especially in the chorus, these songs kind of just keep going. They sound like they're just kind of meandering from part to part. And this is especially maddening considering one of maybe my biggest overarching criticism of both of these EPs is that a lot of these songs do feel like they were written around just this particular chorus. Like the chorus is the nucleus and all the other parts of the song feel like they're just trying to get you back to the chorus. If you're going to use that as your formula for a song, you better have a good fucking chorus. And luckily, like, the band does have songs where they pull that off, like the ones I've complimented. But if the chorus isn't there, the song's not there. And these three tracks in a row, plus Divided, 4 tracks on this 6 full-track EP, that's raps right there. I will shout out the closer Antidote for at least having some nice soulful melodies and some genuine emotion. But the thing with this track, especially being more of like a ballad type track, it makes me miss Daughtry's old style of ballad when it was just Chris Daughtry singing with an acoustic guitar. I don't know why they got to throw all this production and all these layers of studio effects and gloss over this song. It's not bad. After the Day I Die, it's definitely my favorite on this Part 2 EP, but it's day and night to me. So overall what we have here is, to me, at least another step in the right direction. Part 1 especially, I think, is for the most part pretty enjoyable. But unfortunately, aside from one track, The Day I Die, Part 2 just doesn't do it for me. And that's a bit of a letdown, considering that I was at least somewhat hyped after enjoying Part 1 as much as I did. But I'm going to keep rooting for Daughtry here. I will always love Chris Daughtry's voice, just how he sounds purely. If I could give a suggestion to the band, I think they should just go for more of that stripped back, straightforward production style and sound like they had on the first 3 records. It's been a long time since they went for that, and I think the band could pull it off. And I think the songs themselves would sound a lot more genuine, sound like they had a bit more soul behind them and weren't as artificial, to no pun intended. So with this double EP release, I am once again glad to see them, to my ears, go take another step in the right direction, but they aren't quite back in my good graces yet. I'm going to give these combined EPs a score of 12 out of 30. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to hit subscribe for more rock and metal related content and album reviews, as well as comment your thoughts below on this album if you've heard it. Check the description of the video for all my links. And once again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.